Hi and welcome. A bit of a different video this time. If you have seen Last Duel, the newest film by Ridley Scott, you must have noticed an unusual way the story is being told. I call it subjective action. It's a plot device that involves various characters providing subjective, alternative, and contradictory versions of the same incidents. The concept of the subjective action may feel fresh or new to some of you, but the truth is that this plot device has been around in cinema for some time now. I think it was first introduced in Rashomon by Akira Kurosawa in 1950. Well, this particular plot device has one major flaw that you need to be aware of. In this kind of films, you begin with your story very late. Usually in modern films, after just 15 minutes, you'll have your first turning point, which means that the exposition is going to be over and the character is going to have to make his first choice. In subjective action films, it's much longer. The problem with this kind of films is that the exposition is basically the whole first chapter of the story, when we see it from the perspective of the first character. In Last Duel, for example, the first moment where you are truly engaged in the story is when the chapter 2 begins, and you learn that you're going to see the same events in a new light, from a different perspective. So, I measured the time, and in Last Duel, first chapter, which is the first act, lasts 30 minutes. So, half an hour is 2 times more than usual 15 minutes in other movies. However, there are things that you can do to mitigate this problem. I distinguish 3 things that creators of Last Duel utilized to make this long first act as engaging as possible. The third thing is the most important, so make sure to stick around till the end. So, the first thing is to make the beginning of your film most attractive visually. This is mostly given when you consider historical movies. When you're watching a film set in different times, you'll always notice the costumes and the scenography at the beginning the most. And then when the story engages you emotionally, you kind of forget about the costumes and focused on following the characters. This visual ornament becomes an organic part of the world that you're already in, right? And this is the way to leverage the attractiveness of the period pieces. But if you happen to be making a film that is set in the present times, you can always put the action in unusual circumstances. If you're going to paint the world of the story in an engaging and colorful way, audiences are going to forgive you making a long intro at the beginning. Now, the second thing is to make the first act as short as possible. In the case of Last Duel, the first act is the story told from the perspective of Matt Damon's character. So, any scene that can be omitted has to be omitted. It should be written in the way that gives you enough information to understand what are the stakes and how he thinks he was betrayed by his friend Legree. Nothing more. Now, as I told you before, it's a half an hour. You may think it's a lot, but it really isn't. I myself made a feature film that utilized the same principle of gradually exposing the truth to the audience. And I have to admit, shamefully, that I'm guilty of making even longer first acts. In my film Fatebreaker, the first act is actually most of the film. They did a much better job in balancing it out in Last Duel. The last chapter, that is a confession of the wife, is 1 hour long. It's the one where you learn the truth about what happened. And it's 2 times longer than the first act. So just remember to be as concise as possible at the beginning of your story if you're making this kind of film. But let's move on to the third and last most important thing to mitigate the impact of the long first act. You can begin the story from the end. In this case, it's the scene of the duel. So, when the film begins, we see the preparation of Carouche and Legris to the duel. We see them begin their fight to the death, and then the director cuts to the events that led to the duel. So we learn that these same men were best friends before. So this instantly makes us curious. We ask ourselves, what's going to happen that these two friends will decide to fight to the death? This plot device is called a hook. It's a promise that director is making to us, the viewers. It's like him saying, keep watching and I will tell you what circumstances led to these two friends to want to kill one another. As a screenwriter, you may want to utilize hook like this when you have a seemingly ordinary beginning of the story and an extreme ending. So, hopefully this was helpful. If you want to analyze films like a pro on your own, I made a 5-step guide. It's a PDF file that you can download for free. The link is in the description. Thanks for watching.